I remember when I announced for president in December of 1974, there was a major headline on the editorial page of the Atlanta Constitution that said Jimmy Carter is running for what? And the what was about this big. I'm running for president.
Jimmy Carter entered the Democratic presidential race a political unknown. Outside of Georgia, hardly anyone even recognized his name. But that would change.
Jimmy who?
Jimmy Carter.
Jimmy who?
I don't know who he is.
Jimmy Carter's a basketball player, isn't he?
Well, I got nothing against him. Looks to me he's all right. You know what I mean? Yeah, he's a Democrat, right?
He's a people's man.
He's sexy?
Wait a minute now.
What do you mean by that?
I've never thought of Jimmy Carter as sexy. I think that if it comes down to it, people would say more that Gerald Ford is sexy because he was a football player. Carter sexy? I just think he's a very neat man.
Yeah, I think he has a nice smile. How do you do?
What his bushy hair flying all around?
I heard he was a peanut farmer.
I don't think it makes any difference, you know, I mean, whether he's a peanut farmer or not. I mean, there's nothing wrong with peanuts as far as I'm concerned, you know.
I picture him like one of us. One of the working people, one of the common people.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me a great deal of pleasure to present to you the next President of the United States, Jimmy Carter.
Sometimes introductions are hard to follow. I remember about 5 years ago when I was running for governor, and the young man who introduced me had done a great deal of work on my background, and he got up and said, we have with us tonight, at that time, Senator Jimmy Carter from Plains, Georgia. He went to Georgia Southwestern College where he studied chemistry, and then he said he went to Georgia Tech where he studied engineering. And then he pointed out that I had gone to the U.S. Naval Academy and received a degree in naval science. And then he said he went to Union College in Schenectady, New York, where he did his graduate work in nuclear physics. And now he said he grows peanuts for a living.
Jimmy Carter's roots go deep into the dark red soil of southwest Georgia. He was born near the small farming town of Plains, but like many young people, decided against continuing the family tradition. Eventually, he ended a promising career as a naval officer to return to the land, resuming the work of his parents and their parents before them.
My children will be the sixth generation on the same land. And although I've had a good chance to get an education as an engineer and a scientist, nobody in my family before my generation ever had a chance to finish high school. We've always worked for a living. We know what it means to work.
The determination, the self-discipline, the pure exertion that helped Jimmy Carter build a successful farming business would also see him through a punishing campaign, a campaign that was marked in the beginning by loneliness. There were no reporters, no cameras, no Secret Service nearby when Jimmy first walked up and introduced himself to countless voters. This style was unheard of for a presidential hopeful, but for Jimmy Carter, there was no other way.
I want to be tested in the most severe possible way. I can't think of any more severe way than campaigning 250 days this year outside of Georgia, or entering 31 different primaries. I want the people of this country to know my character, my strengths and my weaknesses, my stand on the issues. If I can measure up to what the American people want our government to be, I'll be elected.
Jimmy Carter from Georgia. I hope to be your next president.
And so he traveled to the towns, the cities, to the meeting halls and factories, the supermarkets and sidewalks, talking to as many people as he could meet in as many states as he could visit. Gradually, he began to close the gap between Jimmy Carter unknown and Jimmy Carter, a candidate to be considered. New Hampshire, the first primary, the first state in which voters would make their choice. Traditionally, no candidate who lost in New Hampshire ever won the presidency. In the final days, a group of Georgia supporters, often referred to as Carter's Peanut Brigade, flew into New Hampshire.
Hello, are you Mrs. Cole? Yes. I'm Doc Patches, and I'm a volunteer from the state of Georgia.
If we had snow on the ground like this, we'd be paralyzed for a week. We couldn't get out of the house.
Her schedule was grueling, almost as tough as her husband's. Yet through it all, Rosalind remained an earnest and gracious campaigner.
People ask me every day, how can you stand for your husband to be in politics and everybody know everything you do? And I just tell them that we were born and raised and still live in Plains, Georgia. It has a population of 683, and everybody has always known everything I did. And Jimmy has never had any hint of scandal in his personal or his public life. I really believe he can restore that honesty, integrity, openness, confidence in government that we so sorely need in our country today. I think he'll be a great president.
The last vote was cast and the polls were closed. As darkness fell over New England, candidates met once again with their supporters and anxiously waited for the first returns of the primary season.
Jimmy Carter took a long lead tonight in the race for the Democratic presidential nomination. He won the New Hampshire primary handily. CBS News.
When the official results were announced, Jimmy Carter had won 30% of the total popular vote.
The New Hampshire results show that in New England, being from the South was not the handicap that many people thought it would be, Dave.
Thank you very much for coming by.
I've enjoyed it.
Other victory celebrations would follow, but few would be as gratifying to the dark horse candidate from Georgia.
We'll meet him. I remember when we couldn't find a microphone.
The primaries came in rapid succession, like firecrackers on the 4th of July.
This year we've had 30 state primaries, more than ever before, making it possible to take our campaign directly to the people of America, to homes and shopping centers, to factory shift lines and colleges, to beauty parlors and barber shops, to farmers markets and union halls. This has been a long and a personal campaign, a kind of humbling experience, reminding us that ultimate political influence rests not with the power brokers, but with the people.
The people listened to the simple way Jimmy Carter voiced the high ideals of the Democratic Party. They showed their approval with feverish excitement, a far cry from the polite and solitary handshakes of months before. And the smile that greeted those early voters, it had become as familiar as the morning paper. Through hard work, Jimmy Carter built a successful family business. And he put the same drive and energy into solving community problems. First as a state senator, then as governor of Georgia. While governor, Jimmy Carter proved that state government can be competent, open, and honest. He took his ideas directly to the people, and they liked what he had to say.
Well, my grocery bill has gone up between $10 and $15 a week. So.
He fought special interests and began programs responsive to the needs of the people, launching reforms in mental health, education, and environmental protection. He left a surplus of $116 million in the Treasury and successfully directed a total reorganization of the state bureaucracy.
The bureaucracy in Washington now is the most confused, bloated, overlapping, wasteful that mankind has ever created. There's no way to get an answer out of Washington and no way to understand what's going on there. You've got 1,900 agencies and departments in Washington. That needs to be chopped down to no more than 200. When I was elected governor, we had 300 agencies. But I went in as a businessman, as a farmer, as a planner, as a scientist, and we abolished 278 of those agencies. And we set up a very simple structure of government that was economical and efficient. And more importantly, that the people could understand for a change and control. We cut administrative costs more than 50%. With a new budgeting technique called zero-based budgeting, we eliminated all the old obsolescent programs, put into effect long-range goals and planning, and cut administrative costs more than 50%, and shifted that money and that service and that work toward giving better government services to our people. We had a disgraceful education system, now we've got a pretty good one. Had a disgraceful prison system, it's much better than it was. Had a disgraceful mental health program, now it's pretty good. When I went out of office, we had a AAA bond rating, and I think we had restored the confidence of people in their own government. I don't claim to know all the answers, but I'm telling you that all those things I described to you just then that have been done in Georgia will be done in Washington when I'm in the White House.
In a country that was founded on justice and equality, there's something wrong with a tax system that cheats the average American.
The tax laws of this country are a disgrace to the human race. The surest income to be taxed is the income earned from manual labor. There are not any hidden tax loopholes for people who draw a paycheck every week or every 2 weeks, but there are a lot of tax loopholes for people who are rich and who have those lobbyists working in Washington full-time to retain their special privilege. The average family in this country that makes less than $10,000 a year actually pays a higher proportion of their income in taxes than the average family in this country that makes more than $1 million a year. That's disgraceful.
Jimmy Carter would never allow our nation to be threatened by economic blackmail.
I would make it clear to the Arab countries, in no uncertain terms, that if they ever again try to blackmail this nation, as they did in 1973, by declaring an embargo against us, that we would consider it instantly not a military but an economic declaration of war, and that we would respond in like terms and declare a total embargo against them, not ship them any food, no weapons, no spare parts for weapons, no oil drilling rigs, no oil pipe, no nothing. I think this would prevent their trying to bring this nation to its knees again with an oil embargo, and would ensure that we could continue to get shipments of oil to this country. We've now got 12 million people on welfare chronically. First of all, we need to separate that 10% of welfare recipients who can work completely out of the welfare program, put them under the Labor Department, Education Department, teach them how to work, give them a job training, match them with a job, and offer it to them. If they don't take it, when it's offered to them, I wouldn't pay them any more benefits. The other 90% can't work full-time. They ought to have a fairly uniform nationwide payment to meet the basic necessities of life for those who cannot work full-time. There ought to be a work incentive program to encourage them to work part-time if they can. We ought to remove the parts of the welfare law that force fathers to leave the home, and boil down those 100 programs to, I'd say, not more than 2 or 3, to eliminate the confusion, to reduce the waste, to get rid of the cheaters, and to let welfare workers, for a change, deal with people who really need their services and not just spend their time shuffling papers.
It's a long way from Plains, Georgia to Washington, D.C. The strength of a person can be measured by the path he takes to travel there. For Jimmy Carter, that road was one of hard work and determination. It's the same road that has been traveled for more than 200 years in this country by people who could see in hardships freedom and in obstacles opportunity. Those men and women literally built this nation from the land. The seasons have turned into centuries now, but the traditions they planted will continue to grow.
We can all see a greater nation. I have a vision of America, a vision that has grown and ripened as I've traveled and talked and listened and learned and gotten to know the people of this country. I see an America poised not only at the beginning of a new century, but at the brink of a long new era of more effective and efficient and sensitive and competent government. I see an America that has turned away from scandals and corruption. I see an American president who governs with vigor and with vision and affirmative leadership. A president who is not isolated from our people, but a president who feels your pain and who shares your dreams. I see an America on the move again, united, its wounds healed, an America entering its third century with confidence and competence and compassion, an America that lives up to the majesty of its Constitution and the simple decency of its people. This is my vision of America. I hope you share it, and I hope you will help me fight for it.
I heard a young man speaking out just the other day, so I stopped to take a listen to what he had to say. He spoke straight and simple, by that I was impressed. He said, once and for all, why not the best? He said his name was Jimmy Carter, and he was running for president. Then he laid out a plan of action that made a lot of sense. He talked about the government and how good it could be for you and me. Oh, that's the way it ought to be right now. Once and for all, why not the best?
I want to see us once again have a nation that's as good and honest and decent and truthful and competent and compassionate and is filled with love as are the American people.
He spoke straight and simple, and I began to understand. Oh, I was listening to quite a man talking to me, and I began to see we need Jimmy Carter. Why settle for less, America? Once and for all, why not the best? We need Jimmy Carter. We can't afford